Okay, so here's what I need you to do tomorrow for these. Like, this is like 3, 4, 5. Okay, I need you to draw a picture of each triangle that goes with each angle. Okay, so some of you aren't doing that. So watch. All right, so you make your X, your Y and your X axis. So draw a picture for each degree measure. Okay, 240. Remember, you start out here at 0. If I go up to there and stop, that's 90. If I come over here and stop, that's 180. If I go down, that's 270. So 240 is between 180 and 270. So my picture, my hypotenuse will come out this way. You always go back to the x-axis. Your right angle's there on the x-axis. Theta is back here by the origin. Okay? Now, since it's 240, I don't really need to put theta. I can put the actual degree measure. What's 240 minus 180? We'll erase that theta and we'll put the number. That's a 60, right? Remember, from here to here is 180. And then from here to here is 240. Okay? So my picture here, my angle there is a 60-degree angle. Because 240 minus 180 is 60. So there's my 30. Okay, opposite the 30 is always the 1. Since I'm in the third quadrant, my x value is negative. Because I went left there. Opposite the 60 is the square root of 3. Since I'm going down, that's also negative. So my x and my y are negative, or my two sides of my triangle are negative. Right? The hypotenuse is always 2 for a 30, 60, 90. And it's always positive, remember, the hypotenuse. That never changes from positive. Okay? The two sides, the two legs, we call them, of the right triangle can be negative or positive, but my hypotenuse will always be positive. So that's the picture that goes with that one. Okay? Okay, on this one, 150, there's 90, there's 180. That's between 90 and 180. So this triangle is in the second quadrant. Okay? From here to here is 150. From here to there is 180. You subtract 150 from 180, so this is a 30-degree angle. There's your 60. Again, opposite the 30 is always the 1. The hypotenuse is always the 2. And opposite the 60 is the radical 3. This time the radical 3 is the negative because, again, my x value is in that negative x-axis, right? Questions on the two pictures so far? All right. 315, here's 90, 180, 270, all the way around is 360. That's between 270 and 360. So that's in the fourth quadrant, my triangle. All right, so my hypotenuse comes out, go back to the x, and back over to the origin. All right, so remember, from here to there is 315. And all the way around is 360. I go 360 minus 315 to get that angle measure, which is 45. All right, so it's not a 30-60, it's a 45. The legs for 45s are 1. That's a positive 1 because you're a positive x-axis. this is a negative one because you're going down. The y's are negative down there. And then my hypotenuse is positive, but it's the square root of 2 on a 45, 45. You're supposed to memorize those two triangles. Okay? I want to see those pictures tomorrow. Then you can answer the question. Then you can find the exact answer. Okay? Exact. Not the decimal, Andrew. No, the hypotenuse is always positive. Okay? Even though, these two, this one here looks like it's going down and this one, we're still going to make the hypotenuse positive. Any other questions? Now I'm just going to do SOHCAHTOA with, cosine, sine, and cotangent. All right, I'm going to find those fractions. Okay. So cosine, remember, is adjacent over hypotenuse, right? Remember, our reference angle is always back by the origin. It's always back there. That's our point of reference. So we know where the opposite side is, where the adjacent side is, where the hypotenuse is. Okay? So Nathan, what's my fraction for this picture, cosine?
2 or 3.
Adjacent over hypotenuse. Which one? Looking at this angle here, that's circled in blue.
Or
What's the adjacent side?
over 2.
Good. -1's the adjacent side, hypotenuse is 2. So that's that. That's that answer. Okay. Minus. All right, Matt Beard. We're looking at this. Reference. What's the sign of that 30?
Is it 2 over negative square root of 3 or not?
Okay, looking at this. Opposite. What's opposite?
Negative square root of 3.
Opposite. Straight across.
1.
1. Hypotenuse.
2.
Okay. If there's no symbol between these two things, what's that mean I'm supposed to do with these two things? Yeah, this is multiplication, right? Braden. Tangent is TOA. So cotangent, what?
1.
Right. Adjacent 1 over opposite -1. Now, we had one similar to this on one of the quizzes last week. A lot of you just said, oh, if this was a positive 1/2, a lot of you said, well, that's 0, so the answer is that. What's Aunt Sally say we're supposed to do first? Multiplication first, right? Then the subtraction. Okay, so I have to do this problem first. -1/2 times -1. Okay? So this is just -1/2. What's -1/2 times -1? -1/2 times -1. Positive 1/2. Thank you. What's a -1/2 plus 1/2? 0. So the exact answer is 0. If you put that in your calculator and just put a 0 there, guess what? No pictures, not full credit. You missed 4 out of the 5. Pictures to me are showing me you understand what's going on. Anybody can punch it in and calculate.
So what do you make that 45 from one
Okay, I know it's between 270 and 360, right? All the way around. So I know my triangle's in the 4th quadrant. So this arc, this blue arc that stopped right there at the hypotenuse was 315 degrees. The green arc went all the way around, that's 360. So I go 360 minus 315, that gives me the 45 that's in between.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? You understand this, you should understand everything. That's what you're gonna need to do for 3, 4, 5 on the quiz. 1 and 2, we gotta draw a picture also. But I give you the 3, I give you 2 of the 3 sides. You gotta find that 3rd side. Using Pythagorean. Okay, so. Doing, number 1, the point was 4, -3. What quadrant is that point, 4, -3? 4th, right? So my picture is going to be down here. This point is 4, -3. That makes this, there's my right angle always on the x. That makes my y -3, my x 4. Theta, remember, is always back there. How do I find the hypotenuse? Pythagorean, right? 4 squared plus -3 squared equals the hypotenuse squared, or c squared. So 16 plus 9, 25. So what does c equal? 5. Some of you forgot to square root last week. Some of you remembered to square root it, but wrote it as the square root of 25. You should know that the square root of 25 is 5, shouldn't we? Okay? And then we just do the 6 trig functions. Okay? So sine, opposite, -3 over hypotenuse, 5. Cosecant, reciprocal, 5 over -3. Zion, is this making sense? Yeah. Okay. Jacob Sturman, is this starting to make better sense?
Yeah.
Cosine, adjacent, 4 over hypotenuse, 5. Secant, 5 over 4. Tangent, opposite over adjacent. Opposite, again, you always start here. Straight across is opposite, -3 over adjacent, 4. Cotangent, reciprocal, 4 over -3. There's your 6 answers. Questions? Simple. All right, number 2 is just like it, just giving you different numbers. Question, Jacob?
The sign of 4 over 5.
Okay, again, it's so for sine, it's opposite over hypotenuse. So from here, opposite over hypotenuse, that's how we got that. For cosine, that's ca, that's adjacent, 4 over hypotenuse, 5.
Yeah.
Tangent, toa, is opposite over adjacent. And then of these, we just flip them.
That's what I was looking for. I was looking
Okay.
for the one that flipped. Yeah.
Right, so these 2 go together,
Okay.
and then these 2,
It just-
and these 2. Brandon?
For numbers 1 and 2, will we use these points if we don't draw
I guess you can do it without, if you remember it's, X over R, Y over R, and that kind of stuff. I guess you wouldn't have to draw, because you know what X and Y are. You have to still find R, yeah. Any other questions? So 2 was -8, -5. Okay? So -8, -5, I'm in the third quadrant, right? That's where that point is. So I know that side's -5, this side's -8. So -8 squared is positive 64. -5 squared is positive 25. That's 89. So we take the square root. 89 doesn't break down. Can't simplify it. Okay? So we just have to rationalize some denominators when we do it. Sine opposite -5 over the square root of 89. Remember, some of you forgot this last week, you have to rationalize. So it's -5 times the square root of 89 over 89. Okay? So this wasn't a nice number. We couldn't simplify it at all either. So we just got that big radical. It's okay. So cosecant, it's reciprocal. Do the original one. So if you do this one, then you got to rationalize, you get some really big numbers. So just flip the original. Square root of 89 over -5. Cosine. Adjacent, -8 over square root of 89. When you rationalize it, -8 times the square root of 89 over 89. Secant, flip the original, radical 89 over -8. Tangent, TOA, opposite, -5 over adjacent, -8. Two negatives make it positive. Cotangent, 8 over 5. Again, two negatives make it positive. Right?
Mm-hmm.
With Captain Crunch. Crunch berries. Nice. I love that stuff. Just can't eat it anymore. Too old and fat. All right? Questions? Those are easy, right? Marcus? Brother to Marcus? Mason? Have you talked to Marcus lately?
Yeah, someone's going to fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's not good. He's probably ticked off about that. All right, so number 3, it tells us what the cosine is. It tells us what quadrant we're in. What quadrant's that? No. No. 2. Again, look, here's 0 or 360, right? Here's 90. Here's 180. Here's 270. Because we're going this direction, positive, right? So it tells us we're between 90 and 180. So my picture is in the second quadrant. Okay, I'm in the second quadrant. All right, remember cosine is adjacent, which is negative radical 2, over hypotenuse, which is 2. So I got two sides of my triangle. How do I find the third side? Like always, Pythagorean. Now remember, this side is like A or B, it doesn't matter. I'll just use it as A. This is the B. This is the hypotenuse. Last week, we put these two on the same side when you had the hypotenuse. Remember, it's on the other side. Okay, so I got A squared. Negative radical 2 times a negative radical 2 is a positive 2. 2 squared is 4. So I subtract 2. So what's A equal? The square root of 2, right? Radical 2. So my third side is radical 2. And since it's in the second quadrant, this is going up. That's a positive radical 2. So I have my signs correct. Now, I'm supposed to figure out, and put that down, I'm supposed to find cotangent. That's what I'm looking for. So again, there's my theta. Cotangent is adjacent over opposite, the reciprocal of tangent. So negative radical 2 divided by radical 2 is what? Negative 1, right? There's the exact value. So when I say show your work, find the exact value, I want the picture, and then I want the fraction answer. I don't want the decimal answer. Sometimes we get whole numbers, that's nice. That works out like that. Questions on number 3? Simple, you can do it, no problem, right? Okay, number 4, 225. Where's that at? Third quadrant, right? So my triangle's down here in the third quadrant. Okay? So remember, that's 180. And that's 225. How do I find the difference between those? Subtract. So what's my reference angle? How many degrees? 45. Opposite the 45s are 1s. In the third quadrant, they're both negative. The hypotenuse for the 45s are always the square root of 2. All our hypotenuses, no matter what quadrant we're in, is positive. Okay? So there's my picture. I'm looking for secant. So again, do not just put this in your calculator. What's that the reciprocal of? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Cosine, right? That's the reciprocal of cosine. Remember, cosine is this. So we're flipping it. Hypotenuse over adjacent, all right? Hypotenuse, square root of 2, over adjacent, negative 1. You can leave it like that, or you can just put negative the square root of 2 if you want. That's the exact answer. Okay. Questions? Last one. Sine squared of 30 degrees plus cosine squared of 33. Okay? So I need 30 degrees is in the first quadrant. So my picture It's in the first quadrant, 30 degrees is my reference angle. They told us, I told you what it was. Remember, opposite to 30 is always the 1. The hypotenuse is always 2 for the 30-60. Opposite to 60 is the square root of 3. First quadrant, everything's positive. Okay? So sine of 30, I gotta square it, plus cosine of 30. All right? Sine of 30, opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine of 30, adjacent over hypotenuse. All right, and just square it every number. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, radical 3 squared is 3, 2 squared is 4. Oops, I write it 2. What's 1/4 plus 3/4? 4/4, which is 1. Get it? Got it? Good? Look good, feel good? Or good. Either the hammer or the nail. Don't be the nail, Beard. Either get the bear or the bear gets you. Don't let me get you, Jacob, because I am the bear. God. Go back to 3.
Yeah, I think it's.
Okay. Any other questions?
almost.
There's no